You can't see my screen, or at least see the generic screen with the webinar information on it, let me know. Sometimes it could be a Mac issue. It could be a PC issue too. I'll try and get that worked out for you once I hand things over. Um, Additionally, if you would like to view the webinar and you don't have a microphone and speakers handy and you don't feel like dialing in the long distance number, you can watch it later. I'm actually recording it right now, and you can find it at www.aaf.org/webinars. And thank you, Richard. The screen is blue. That's what you should be seeing, a blue screen right now. I'm going to go ahead and bring it back so you can just see the information. And like I said, www.aaf.org/webinars. And there you'll see a link to the Faculty Toolkit webinar series. And within that link, there will be a link to download the webinar. Additionally, you can actually use the same link that you were sent by GoToMeeting, your invite. You can use that as well. That'll be available either later today or at some point early tomorrow. What we're going to do here is I'm going to pass it over in just a second, and they're going to get on with the webinar. And while Wally is speaking, I'll be taking questions. We're going to have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, and what I'm going to do is just sort of go through, as it'll be a first-come, first-served basis, and I'm going to be putting your questions off to the side and reading them to Wally during the Q&A session. So what you're going to want to do is at the bottom of your GoToWebinar control panel, you'll see a place where you can enter a chat message or send a question, actually, I believe is what it says. And you'll want to choose send a question to staff. I'll see that, and you can also send me, that's where you would let me know if you couldn't see or if you couldn't hear or you were having any trouble like that. Let's see. I guess without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hand things over to Melissa, and Melissa and Wally will take it from here. Melissa?
Thank you, Phil. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, this afternoon. I'm taking time out of
Melissa, you're a little bit quiet right now.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Welcome to today's webinar on educating younger generations on advertising ethics. Both Wally and I really appreciate you taking the time today out of your busy schedule to join us and to discuss this really critical topic and how to integrate advertising ethics into the classroom curriculum. This is an effort that Wally started about a few years ago, and so we're now starting to implement all of the initiatives and the research that he's done over the past few years and sharing it with you so that you can help us to carry on this mission. So again, my name is Melissa Wong. I'm the Manager of Education Services here at the AAF. And today's webinar, before I introduce Wally, I wanted to give you an idea of the layout. So we'll start off with Wally's lecture for about the first 30 to 35 minutes, and then I'll actually hop back on and give all of you some information about a very exciting resource that we're creating here at the AAF that will help you to implement advertising ethics into the classroom. And then for the last 15 minutes or so, we're going to open up the floor to questions, and then both Wally and I can answer what remaining questions that you have about advertising ethics. So without further ado, let me introduce Wally. Wally is the Executive Director for the Institute for Advertising Ethics, and he also serves as a distinguished visiting professor at the Missouri School of Journalism. As Phil had mentioned before, Wally was previously the AAF President and CEO. He was also Associate Director for Advertising Practices and a trial attorney at the Federal Trade Commission. He conducts classes on college campuses on advertising ethics and has written articles appearing in Advertising Age, Business and Professional Journal, and the Journal of Advertising Research, which will be included in the September 2011 issue. Wally was inducted into the American Advertising Hall of Fame in 2010, and was presented the Kim Russell Award for Advertising Ethics by the American Academy of Advertising in 2009. So Wally, I turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Melissa. I want to say it's really an honor and a real pleasure to participate with you today in discussing the enhanced role for advertising ethics. We will be focusing on how we can inspire our students as we prepare them to enter the advertising profession, to practice the highest level of advertising ethics. Now, this webinar is not about lecturing you or your students on ethics. As we connect today and in our classes on advertising ethics, I look forward to a reflective dialogue on the mission of enhancing ad ethics. I want to know what you think and feel, as well as what your students think and feel. And I will share with you what I believe and feel, and very importantly, what consumers believe and say they want when it comes to advertising ethics. We will look at some real-world ethical dilemmas that we face in advertising, and we will consider the principles of advertising ethics and discuss how your students can apply them in their profession. Now, as one who has spent his entire career in the competitive field of advertising, I know how important advertising is to consumers and the economy. First, advertising provides consumers with the information that is critical for their purchasing decisions. Also, it provides a platform for price competition and innovation in products and services. If you could not advertise, there would be little reason to improve your product or sell it at a less expensive price. It is for these benefits that the Supreme Court has ruled that truthful advertising is protected by the First Amendment to the Constitution. Finally, advertising pays for most of the entertainment we expect in traditional media and more online. Now, I'd like to turn to the importance of advertising ethics. And in doing so, I have asked for your views on this. And many of you came back and gave us survey results. And I wanted to go over those with you for just a moment. First of all, we asked what it was that you felt, how important you felt advertising ethics would be. And the result that you came back with is really very impressive. 56% of you stated that advertising ethics is critical. And another 37% of you stated that it was very important. This is one of the highest ratings we have had on our results. Also, I asked you to give me a word description, words that would be the most important to you in describing advertising ethics. By a 2-to-1 margin, the most used word that came up was honesty, and then truthfulness. Also, words that came back included transparency, included integrity, included fairness, and so I will be discussing all of these words as we go through my presentation. But I think that what you have captured is very much of what I feel is the importance of advertising ethics. Now, here's the context. Americans' trust in business has really fallen during these tough economic times. This is a reality which presents both a challenge and an opportunity for the advertising industry. After all, the purpose of advertising is to build brand loyalty and consumer trust for its clients. But to do so, advertising itself must be trusted. And to build consumer trust in advertising and business, I believe we must inspire advertising professionals to practice the highest ethical principles. This is a mission of our newly established Institute for Advertising Ethics that was announced last June as a partnership between the American Advertising Federation and the Reynolds Journalism Institute and the Missouri School of Journalism. Please visit these websites to view the Institute's principles and advertising ethics with commentary and links to industry, government, and association websites on ethical issues. You can review the names of the renowned industry and academic leaders composing our advisory council. So this is really a resource that you have that you can be using right now with your students. This commentary is quite elaborate, and it does contain links on ethical issues to the government, to other associations, and to business. Now, this is our premise for our institute. Advertising in all media and methods of communication should always try to do the right thing for consumers. We believe this is both the ethical way to operate and also good for business in the long term. Here is my ethical definition of doing the right thing for consumers. First, to be ethical, we need to follow the law. The Federal Trade Commission requires that ads be truthful and not misleading. That means that disclosures are required so that ads are not deceptive by half-truth. The Federal Trade Commission also requires that all ads be substantiated by a prior reasonable basis of fact. So truth is a foundation upon which ethical ads are constructed. But ethics rises above being truthful and not misleading. Advertisers should treat consumers fairly, depending on the nature of the audience, for example, children, and the nature of the product, for example, alcoholic beverages. I will be discussing the resolution of ethical fairness dilemmas. Finally, advertising should not offend consumers. There are no black and white rules for this ethical mandate, and the government is not and should not be involved. Again, I will be providing illustrations in this important area. Advertising cannot provide maximum benefit unless it is trusted by consumers. And I believe that trust is directly related to enhanced advertising ethics. We know from research conducted by Bozell Worldwide that consumers rank ethics and values as the #1 factor in assessing whether or not a company can be called a corporate good citizen. And research reported in 2008 in the Wall Street Journal showed that consumers think highly enough about ethics that they are willing to pay more for an ethically produced product. The high impact of advertising ethics was demonstrated in consumer research conducted in 2009 by 4 capstone student teams at the Missouri School of Journalism. Collectively, the groups studied the beliefs of consumers, marketers, and advertising majors. The primary research consisted of online surveys with follow-up interviews. While not representative, the work shows beliefs and attitudes that are consistent and instructive. Most of the 214 consumers stated they would be more likely to buy the products featured in ads if the company was ethical. As to the importance of ethical advertising, honest advertising was the top-ranked aspect that would make a company ethical at 89%, followed by socially responsible, 80%, and environmentally friendly, 59%. American companies spend billions of dollars annually on being socially responsible and environmentally friendly. It is a mission of the Institute to make sure that clients understand the relative importance of advertising ethics. Now, while consumers tell us they want ethical and honest advertising, they do not believe they are getting it. This recent research from the Harris poll shows that only 19% say that most of the time they trust that advertising is honest in its claims. I believe that with enhanced advertising ethics, we have the opportunity to build trust with the 65% who say they trust advertising sometimes. That conclusion is built upon the capstone research as to the importance marketing professionals give to ad ethics. 53% said that ethics is very important to professionals in the ad industry, and 43% believe it is somewhat important. Very importantly, building consumer trust was seen by 42% of the sample as the greatest benefit from advertising ethics. What about advertising majors? Well, of the advertising majors surveyed, an overwhelming 86% said advertising ethics was important to them and important to consumers. This is very positive finding. In my class interactions with advertising majors, and in one focus group I conducted, it is clear to me that advertising students want to be seen as ethical professionals. And they are very focused on why ad ethics is important when dealing with consumers. Reasons given in their research included that people will pay more for an ethically produced product, will boycott an unethical one, and that it is very easy for consumers to assess information relating to a company's ethics on the internet. This point about consumer access to online information is an important one. Consumers have the power to share information with other consumers about the products and the ads that they like and dislike. Now, an impactful illustration is a site created by Enviromedia, greenwashingindex.com, where consumers go to rate the credibility of green marketing claims. Currently, over 100 ads are available to rate, and some have received very high and some very low ratings. In rating the ads, consumers follow a scale of 1, seen as authentic, 3, suspect, and 5, bogus. Consumers put on the site the ads that are rated. This ad in the form of a billboard in Pennsylvania for coal as clean green energy was voted online as one of the, quote, worst offenders, close quote, with a rating of 4.7. So that has been shared online by many, many people. Now, of course, also consumers share daily their likes and their dislikes on YouTube, MySpace, and Facebooks. An illustration is a TV spot for Groupon that appeared in the Super Bowl last January. This influential website that focuses on giving consumers good deals used a television spot featuring actor Timothy Hutton in what appeared to be a PSA to aid hurting Tibetans when he stated, "The people of Tibet are in trouble. Their very culture is in jeopardy." Then without a pause he went on, "But they will whip up an amazing fish curry. And since 200 of us bought at Groupon.com, we're each getting $30 worth of Tibetan food for just $15 at Himalayan Restaurant in Chicago." The ad was quickly attacked for making light of Tibetans' hardships on social networking sites across the internet. Group CEO Andrew Mason had to pull the ad 5 days later. Now, the Institute for Advertising Ethics has adopted and published a code entitled the Principles for Advertising Ethics that contain clear principles to educate and enable our professionals to practice enhanced advertising ethics. We begin our mission of inspiring ad professionals with Principle 1 of our Code of Ethics. Advertising, public relations, marketing communications, news, and editorial all share a common objective of truth and high ethical standards in serving the public. This principle is based upon the journalist creed, enunciated by Walter Williams, first dean of the Missouri School of Journalism. Mike Fancher, a veteran journalist from the Seattle Times, has done in-depth research regarding the journalist creed as a fellow of the Reynolds Journalism Institute. He has concluded that Walter Williams believed that both the journalist and people on the business side of the public journal share the responsibility to serve the public, and both must respect each other's important contributions. This conviction is shared today by young leaders in the advertising profession. Jeff Levick, member of the Advertising Hall of Achievement, states it's critical for the industry to acknowledge and accept that advertising is commercial information that must be treated with the same accuracy and ethics as editorial information. This brings us to our second principle of ad ethics. Advertising, public relations, and all marketing communications. And our advisory council continues to make clear we are talking about all forms of corporate advertising. But all of the professionals have an obligation to exercise the highest personal ethics in the creation and dissemination of commercial information to consumers. Now, after all, the role of professionals is central to the practice of high ethical standards by their companies. It will not get done unless the individual practitioner engages in it, or the creative team, or the account team. The importance of advertising to consumers and the economy should stimulate our professionals to practice the highest levels of ethics. When you believe in what you do, when you know how important your work is, you want to do your best in carrying out your responsibilities. Adam Werbach, Chief Sustainability Officer at Saatchi & Saatchi, and a young 2010 inductee into the Advertising Hall of Achievement, puts it this way, quote, as new professionals enter the advertising world, it is imperative they are aware of the importance of high ethics to their consumers and to their careers, close quote. Now I would like to address the principles for advertising ethics as they relate to specific ethical concerns of consumers. Principle 3 provides advertisers should clearly distinguish advertising, public relations, and corporate communications from news and editorial content and entertainment both online and offline. This addresses an ongoing issue where the line is being blurred between commercial communications on the one hand and news, editorial, or entertainment on the other. If consumers are unaware the news or entertainment they are viewing actually is advertising, they're being misled and treated unethically. First, consumers could attach more credibility to the content if they believe it to have been written as a news story. And second, they will not have their minds set in what I would call a business mode to evaluate the claim as they would if recognizing it as a paid-for persuasive ad. Now, the blurring of the line between advertising and news and entertainment is occurring in both print and online. Here is an online illustration. Cardo Systems, the manufacturer of wireless Bluetooth headsets, ran a video on YouTube showing individuals using their cell phones to pop popcorn kernels in close proximity. Some of you may have seen that video. The National Advertising Division, the industry self-regulation unit, concluded that while Cardo never mentioned its name or product, this was in fact an advertisement claiming that cell phones emit heat and radiation, and it is dangerous to users without a separate headset. Cardo agreed to modify the video, making clear, as it does, as you see here, that it is an advertisement for its product. We also have in the commentary examples of print blurring the lines and also even press releases that have been written which are actually advertisements. Now, the explosion of word-of-mouth marketing and blogging about commercial products and services creates special concerns about the blurring of advertising and editorial content. Principle 4 deals with this ethical issue, and it provides advertisers should clearly disclose all material conditions such as payment or receipt of a free product, affecting endorsements in social and traditional channels, as well as the identity of endorsers, all in the interest of full disclosure and transparency. Mark Pritchard, Global Marketing Officer for Procter & Gamble, emphasizes as follows, quote, "Of particular concern is the need for advertisers to be transparent about the conditions for creating online endorsements, for example, through bloggers or social media. It is often not clear, he believes, whether people are endorsing on their own or if they are being compensated by a brand company or are even part of the brand company organization." And he concludes, "The anonymity of the online world requires extra efforts for practicing ethics," close quote. The Federal Trade Commission, the chief federal regulator of advertising, has also amended its endorsement and testimonial guides to require bloggers to disclose when they are paid by a company and when they work for the company whose product is blogged. Also, when they are given the product free of charge. Principle 5 states, advertisers should treat consumers fairly based on the nature of the audience to whom the ads are directed and the nature of the product or service advertised. This includes advertising to children, who have been stated by the advertising industry's Children's Advertising Review Unit to be especially vulnerable by virtue of their inexperience, immaturity, susceptibility to being or unduly influenced, and lack of cognitive skills to evaluate the credibility of advertising. Children's understanding depends on the manner in which the ad is designed and disseminated. Advertisers should always practice the highest ethics when advertising to children. Today, children are connected to products on television, radio, print, and the internet. This includes ads on cell phones, G-rated DVDs, and when playing computer games and video games on company websites where the products are featured. To be ethical, the advertiser must ensure that children understand that the content is advertising. Commentary provides several illustrations of problems in this area. Now, the Children's Food and Beverage Advertising Initiative is an outstanding illustration of how the food industry modified its advertising directed to children under 12 to encourage healthier dietary choices and healthy lifestyles. 17 companies have agreed to advertise only their healthiest products or not at all. Advertising also should treat consumers fairly based on the nature of the product or service. This includes alcoholic beverage ads, where the beer, distilled spirits, and wine industries limit all ads on television to programs with 70% adult audiences. Principle 6 relates to perhaps the greatest online opportunity for advertisers, and yet the one that concerns Congress and consumers the most: behavioral advertising. It states advertisers should never compromise consumers' personal privacy in marketing communications, and their choices as to whether to participate in providing their information should be transparent and easily made. Consumers are segmented via their computers according to the interests they express in online activities, such as search queries, ads they click on, information they share on social sites, and products they put in online shopping carts. Advertisers purchase this data to direct more specific ads to consumers. This cuts down ad cost and also elevates the cost of effectiveness to consumers in getting more relevant ads. Yet research shows that consumers fear that behavioral targeting infringes on their personal privacy. Also, consumers may not be aware that commercial information is being collected when they are online. The ad industry, under the watchful eye of the government, is beginning to respond by making it clear when data is being collected and making it easier for consumers to opt out. Advertisers that follow Principle 6 will provide consumers with the ability to maximize their access to online advertising information and connections. And as Tim Armstrong, Chair and CEO of AOL, believes, ethics can be established online through thousands of one-on-one helpful dialogues with consumers. Principle 7, based on the Council of Better Business Bureau's Code of Business Practices, it provides that advertisers should follow federal, state, and local advertising laws and cooperate with industry self-regulatory programs on the resolution of advertising practices. The commentary to our Institute's Principles for Advertising Ethics discusses these cases, as well as the links and government self-regulation websites. Now, Principle 8, our final ad ethics principle, provides advertisers and their agencies in online and offline media should discuss privately potential ethical concerns, and members of the team creating ads should be given permission to express internally their concerns. There should always be the expectation that advertising ethics will be considered proactively, and the mandate must be from the top down and run all through the company. A private and internal ethics discussion would have saved many clients from having to pull ads attached by consumers. For example, that Super Bowl Groupon ad that was pulled after 5 days of intensive press and online criticism. In my classes on ethics, I have asked students to express their ethical concerns about particular ads. For instance, I asked creative classes their views on this print PSA with the good intention of getting young people to vote in the last election. Several expressed a concern that the ad depicted violence against women and that the message would be rejected by them. In role-playing, I asked if they would express those concerns to me as the account executive before I talked to the client. The answer, yes, if you give me permission. Holding ethics discussions and giving permission is essential. These discussions have to take place in the fast-paced and competitive world of advertising creation and placement. We must make the discussions doable. In conclusion, our new Institute for Advertising Ethics mission is to inspire our professionals to practice the highest ethical principles to build trust and loyalty for our companies and brands. As David Bell, a member of the Advisory Hall of Fame puts it, the Advertising Hall of Fame puts it, trust is the currency of our business, and ethics is the engine of trust. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wally, for that great information. And hopefully from that lecture, you're all asking that question, so how do I get this implemented into the classroom setting? And so I wanted to spend a few minutes with you today talking about a classroom training tool that the AAF is currently developing. Based on focus groups that Wally has conducted at our national conference, as well as feedback gathered from the IAE board, like I said, AAF will be creating a teaching DVD that can assist professors in teaching advertising ethics to their students within the classroom. Originally, we were flirting with the idea of doing a certification program, something that was more online that students could voluntarily sign up and complete. But again, based on that feedback, it didn't seem it was the appropriate solution. So by creating a DVD, it offers a flexible method to build new content into existing advertising curriculum, where any of those 8 principles that Wally spoke about to you or gave you a quick tutorial of can be selected based on its relevance to the specific advertising course that you're teaching. It'll have like a self-selecting menu, and like I said, offering that flexibility. And then upon completion of the DVD series and an exam at the very end, AAF will even offer students certification of advertising ethics that will be signed by Wally as the executive director of the Institute, and then AAF as the organization endorsing this entire program. So as I mentioned before, we're currently in the design phase, and we hope to roll something out by the fall of the next academic year. And this will be available online for sale at the AAF online web store. So if you can all go to the next slide, here I've outlined the content of the DVD series. There are a total of 5 different sections. And the first section will be an introduction to the mission behind the Institute of Advertising Ethics. However, it'll be designed in a way that it speaks directly to a student audience. It'll be very similar to today's lecture, however. And then with section 2, it'll be more extensive discussion on each of the 8 advertising ethics principles for student learning. It'll be more of a one-way lecture where Wally will present specific details and more hands-on examples of how each principle can be implemented excuse me, in a practical setting, and then the research behind each one. And then we go to section 3. This will have resources on how to lead and moderate classroom exercises, related to the different principles. So for those who are new to teaching advertising ethics, it'll give you more of a perspective on how to direct and facilitate the more intimate discussions that you have with your students. I know that Wally, over the summer, did an advertising ethics mini course with high school students, and we'll be videotaping those sort of exercises so that, again, it gives you a real picture of how to lead those discussions. Then we've got section 4. The insight into implementing section 4 in the DVD series is to show that advertising ethics is very relevant. This is a topic that is currently, one of those hot topics or hot button topics that people in the industry are talking about, and we want for them to share their perspective and insights in like, a Larry King style interview to share what they have to say with students and the importance of, as you bridge from academia into the industry, that they will be held to these high standards as they make business decisions and as they work on client projects. So then last but not least is, again, the certification process that I had mentioned earlier, where after a group of students or a student completes a percentage of the DVD series or lectures and exercises that are built into the advertising curriculum, they can be offered a certificate to acknowledge the extra time investment they've put into applying this material to their learnings within their concentration. So the last slide that we have for today is the IE Advisory Board. I'd mentioned that in trying to create this DVD concept, we have, we vetted and we did our due diligence with the expertise of these individuals, and so wanted to share, a comprehensive listing of all the members that are involved with the work that we're doing on the Institute of Advertising Ethics with Wally here at the AAF. And as you can see, it comprises of academics, practitioners, and obviously AAF administration. The inclusion of these perspectives will obviously help us to continue to develop resources that speak to our target audience, because although we're developing this DVD series, this won't be our last effort. We're going to continue to build a portfolio of tools and resources that will help to reinforce these 8 principles. So hopefully, again, you've enjoyed today's webinar. I'm going to open it up to everyone for a Q&A session, and then Wally's going to come back on and we'll have a more integrated talk about advertising ethics further.
Thanks, Melissa. First of all, Melissa, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I got a couple questions from the staff. Wally, whenever you're ready.
Yes.
Okay. First question, and in this regards Principle 3. In light of Principle 3, is product placement unethical?
Well, I don't think it is unethical. I believe that it comes very close to the line sometimes, and I will give a couple examples of that. It depends on whether consumers expect product placement or not. I've seen some data that indicates that I believe that they may expect it to a certain extent in television programming, and if you've ever stayed to the end of the movie, you see a lot of companies' names that have put products in the movie. It's an area that happens a great deal. However, there was a story this week which I thought was very interesting about when people are invited to a friend's home, and without knowing it, the friend is giving them products and services and talking about them that they're actually paid advertising. And this is getting a lot of attention, and this is an example of when consumers would go into a situation not expecting that they're being advertised to in a friend's home, and I think that is really an unethical example of product placement.
Thanks. We actually had 2 questions about that, and what Peggy had stated was that she had shared Principle 3 with her Advertising in Society class, and they had immediately asked, what about product placement? So, I guess you did just answer that, but it seems like it's a hot topic. She also went on to ask, she didn't really understand how advertisers were going to quote unquote live with Principle 6 and participate in behavioral targeting.
Well, this is one in which the industry is more further advanced than we might realize. Most of the associations, including AAF, have come together and have developed a procedure for consumers to follow. It's behavioral targeting, for consumers to follow on behavioral targeting, and it would work this way. An icon has actually been developed that will be used for consumers to click on whenever they come online and information is going to be collected. And if they click on that icon, which is actually looks like a pyramid, it's a triangle, when they click on that icon, they are given information as to what's being collected, and they're given the opportunity to quickly click on to opt out. So that is something that I think is working, may work, but then companies are going to have to adopt this, and the industry is going to have to educate consumers as to the icon and its use. I think the industry will do this because the government is very concerned about behavioral advertising. And here in Washington, there has been a movement for do not track, somewhat like do not call. Do not track is very complicated, but there has been a proposal that consumers could simply say, no more tracking of me ever. So industry is responding to this. It's in the best interest of the industry to do it right. I will tell you the Federal Trade Commission is bringing cases against companies that do not do it right.
Okay. Another question here. How much teaching time do I need to truly dedicate to this in order for students to understand?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of options here, as Melissa was explaining. I feel that if a number of places I've been giving classes, I feel that, you know, if you were to bring this into a class, your class, I think you could do this in 2 class periods, and that would allow you to also get the students involved in some case studies that we're talking about here in the classroom, some ways of getting them involved. The other way is, as Melissa noted, we will be breaking this up around these principles. So if you happen to be teaching your advertising class and you're covering children's advertising, you could take the section on children and cover that in about 15 minutes, seems to me. So we're trying to make this doable. I think it could be done either 2 classrooms if you're doing the whole thing, 2 classes, or it could be done 15 minutes for each of the issues as you want to talk about them.
Okay. Another one here. What other resources will the AAF provide to help academics teach ethics in the classroom?
Well, you know, the first thing I mentioned, and Melissa referred to this again, is we're going to continue to work on that commentary and broaden the commentary that you'll see online, because we want that to be the definitive worldwide source for advertising ethics. So that's going to be continually updated, and quite frankly, we may well add additional principles that will come up. So that you're going to have that information. Also, we will be developing all of these tools that Melissa talked about that you'll be able to use. And, you know, finally, we will be bringing industry into this so that we'll have members of industry that could come into your classroom to discuss how they are implementing the principles and practices. And Melissa, anything more you want to add to that?
Oh, and then we'll also continue to have webinars or updates, if you will, through this faculty toolkit webinar series to help update academics on, you know, what's the latest and greatest with advertising ethics. And then also, you know, based on interest, we could potentially do Skype lectures to the classroom so that we can save some traveling distance for Wally as well.
Yeah, we did one of those this morning with the University of North Carolina. And you know, I think that worked quite well. That was one class, and it was an opportunity through Skyping to actually kind of connect. I think that, so we'll be doing all of these things, online, in person, Skyping.
Yep, and the students seemed very engaged, very receptive of all the material that was discussed earlier today.
Okay. I have one here from Art. To become certified, does a student simply need to complete the training, or do they need to get a certain score or grade on a test? Also, is there some kind of pledge that they can commit to so employers will know that this student will adhere to the standards?
I think it's an excellent question. We're developing this now, but the way we envision it is and by the way, we have an academic committee that's assisting us in all of these materials. And so we will, with their help, develop an exam, and with their help, we'll decide what a level should be for getting the certification. And I really like the idea, by the way, of having students pledge that they will follow ethical principles, and that, by the way, is starting to happen in business. Ketchum, for example, all their employees have to sign a statement, I will adhere to the Ketchum Code of Business Principles. So, and you should all know also that we're working with industry and getting our principles endorsed by them and adopted by them so that they will be used. So I think it would be great when a student comes in and is certified and has that on his or her resume and goes into a company that has adopted the principles. I think it's going to make that a very good hiring decision.
Okay. I guess we have time for one or two more. Give me 1 second here. How do industry professionals find the time to deal with ethical dilemmas?
See, I think that this question, I think, is central to our work. You know, let's assume, for the sake of argument here, that they're not spending much time at this point. I know there's some concerns that there's so much pressure within the business to produce advertisements that they have to move very quickly, and they're going to be very nervous if we come up with heavy processes for them to deal with this. But I feel that we can, by giving them the principles and practices and this commentary, which is available to look for particular issues quickly, an opportunity to start thinking about ethical principles as they're designing the ads. And one of the big questions we've come up with our advisory council is, well, you know, what are you supposed to do if your boss wants you to do something unethical? And we've been working with that one, and one of the answers we've come up with, which is tell him or her no, but come up with an alternative ethical solution. In other words, so if you're dealing that ad claim or that, you can think about something that will make it ethical, which will make it a more powerful ad anyway, and it's really going to make your boss look better in the long run. So we're cognizant that we've got to make this doable and workable. But on the other hand, we feel we've got to do it better than it's now being done, and we've got to do it proactively. There's too much reaction now to ethical glitches. So we're going to work hard on that. I will be doing, hopefully, some workshops within agencies where we can deal with this.
Okay, Wally. I'm going to ask you one more, and this is a long one. And it may be a little bit more conversational than anything, but I'm going to go ahead and throw it out there. I'd very much like to discuss what exactly you are perceiving advertising ethics to be. Is it the truth, honesty, etc., or is it the decision-making process? She goes on to ask, are we to teach students what is ethical and what is unethical, or should we be teaching them the ethical decision-making process?
Yeah, that's very okay. I think that's an excellent question. I think I want to focus with teaching an advertising ethical process, because that involves, first of all, the knowledge that they have to try to act ethical. They have to find, that that's an obligation. So I think that's the starting point. So I would emphasize process. But at the same time, within that process, I think we can provide guidance on particular ethical issues that will help them make the decision. But when it comes down to it, it's going to be a decision that's made at that time by that professional on whether or not to be ethical and how to be ethical. So I would focus on the importance of doing it. Remember, consumers want it, expect it, don't think they're getting it, and will reward companies that do it, and at the same time, making it easier for them to do it.
Okay. All right, then. Well, we're just about out of time. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I want to thank Wally and thank Melissa as well. Thank you to everybody who sent in your questions. And like I said earlier, if you want to download the PowerPoint presentation, you can find it on the website www.aaf.org/webinars. Click on the Faculty Toolkit logo. Or go ahead and send me an email. I'm going to give that out. My email address is P as in Paul, S as in Sam, EWALL@aaf.org, and I can actually send that to you. And the recording of the presentation will be available online as well. I'll try and get that up tomorrow. And I guess if that's all, we'll go ahead and close things out. So thank you again, Wally, and thank you, Melissa. And
thank you.
Yeah, until next time, have a great afternoon, everybody.